Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and once again to the WADcast episode number 138. I am one of your hosts, Josh, joined as always by the guy that does not have a problem being on a show with an evil monster, Brandon.
Jesus. What's up, everybody? Happy Friday. God, it's good to be here. Been waiting to talk about this all week long, this whole show. I've really been just excited about it. So it's, great to actually be able to discuss something that I've always loved since I was a little kid. But yeah.
I think it's safe to say that this is the most important show you'll see of the last 10 years.
Oh, Christ.
Exactly.
Best movie. For those of you that do not know this movie, a group that Josh and I are in, there's a few people that are posting about this movie, Sound of Freedom. It's not a bad movie, but I think they're overhyping it. They just keep saying, like, oh, it's the most important movie you'll ever see because this sheds a light on child trafficking. And honestly, you know what? There is a movie that we're going to be discussing today that deals with child trafficking and slavery as well. It's called The Temple of Doom.
It doesn't matter.
And yeah, it's not all about some guy being gratuitous in his endeavors and everything else. It's a guy that quite literally gets possessed, gets tortured with voodoo, almost falls to his death into the mouth of a bunch of gaping alligators or crocodiles. Mm-hmm. I think. It's called Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. It's one of 5 movies that we'll be discussing tonight. So
we got a docket. We got a docket full.
Yeah, we have quite a bit to discuss here because there's a lot about these movies. I want to say it's Harrison Ford's really his 3rd major role, right? Not major role, but 3rd role because I know he was in. Oh God, what was it?
What was between Star Wars and Indiana Jones?
No, American Graffiti. He was briefly in American Graffiti.
That was before Star Wars, so yeah.
And then he played Han Solo in Star Wars, and then he came in between, I believe, Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. I want to say between those two, he played Indiana Jones in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and that came out. But we're talking about Temple of Doom first because Temple of Doom, chronologically speaking, is the first Indiana Jones movie. Very much the same way that episodes, technically, much in the same way that episodes 4, 5, and 6 of Star Wars came out, and then later on there was episodes 1, 2, and 3. So even though Raiders of the Lost Ark was the first Indiana Jones film released, the first movie in the chronological order was Temple of Doom.
Right, just for the wonderful pedantic members of our WAD community. So you throw WAD in front of anything, and
sounds gross.
It works. Harrison Ford's first acting credit, according to IMDb, is a movie called Getting Straight in 1970.
Oh, okay.
And then he did American Graffiti in 73. Then he did a movie called The Conversation with Gene Hackman.
Oh, okay.
Directed by Francis Ford Coppola. So it's like, wow, he's done stuff. It doesn't look like he had a major role in that, though. And then Star Wars, what will later be known as Episode 4.
Yep.
But at the time, it was just Star Wars. Heroes, 1977 comedy. Force 10 from Navarone, a World War II movie in 1978. Apocalypse Now, 1979. Hanover Street, 79. The Frisco Kid, 79. Empire in 80. Indiana Jones in 81. Blade Runner in 82. Jedi in 83. Temple of Doom in 84. Witness in 85. Mosquito Coast 86. Frantic 88. Working Girl 88. Last Crusade 89. This guy he's been busy for the last 50 freaking years.
Yeah, he has not slowed down.
I'm
And it's,
looking for like a gap in movies, and there's like one or two, 1 or 2 years in between some of these, but it's like, yeah, I guess that would be, sort of taking the movie into pre-production and getting ready for a role essentially.
yeah.
But no, he's been very, very consistent since 1970. This Harrison Ford fella, I think he's gonna make it.
Yeah, no, he's been a pretty busy little beaver there. He's and like for those of you that don't know, Harrison Ford, he's I was talking to somebody about this because no one realizes how old Harrison Ford was when he got his first acting gig,
Hmm.
and he was 30 years old when he played Han Solo. If not 30, he was just past 30, but he wasn't exactly like a young kid when he got that role.
Right.
His big breakout role did not come into play until he was in his 30s. And he wasn't even supposed to be Han Solo. He was just a carpenter on set for George Lucas. He was asked to read as Han Solo, and they realized that he was actually a better Han Solo than all the other people that were auditioning for the part. But after episode 4 and 5 were filmed, A New Hope and Empire Strike Back, the next one that came out, the next movie from Lucasfilm that came out was, in fact, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Or was that between? Was Raiders was what? That was after Empire Strikes Back, right?
Yeah, that was
Those two always
the
like throw
next
me
year.
off.
It
Okay,
goes
so Raiders of the
Empire
Lost
in
Ark came out
80 and Raiders in 81.
and Raiders in 81. So in between Empire and Return of the Jedi, Harrison Ford brought to life the character of Indiana Jones in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Now, initially, that was a role that was supposed to go to Tom Selleck. Tom Selleck was the big choice that the studio had.
Yeah.
And he was like the first choice that everyone else wanted. But because of his filming on Magnum PI, he did not have time to work on Indiana Jones. Thank God. Because honestly, Harrison Ford, you look at a movie role and you cannot imagine someone else doing it other than the actor who's been doing it for so long. You kind of get that feel of things. It's like Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Is he the perfect fit for Wolverine? Absolutely not. But did he do a good job with Wolverine in live action? He really did. So now seeing Wolverine again coming back in Deadpool 2, or Deadpool 3 rather, but we're going off topic, but still point remains that you see an actor in a role so long, it's kind of hard to think of another character to take over that mantle.
Yeah, well, Jackson's been playing Wolverine since like what?
2000, 23 years.
So yeah, it's 23 years, and Harrison Ford has that beat now with Dial of Destiny.
Yep, 40 years.
40 years.
No, 42 years.
Yeah, because
right, 42.
Raiders 81. Yeah.
So yeah, 42 years. So yeah, he's been over for about 42 years. But people talk about how Temple of Doom was the weakest of the first 3 Indiana Jones movies, and I can only say 2 words to describe why: Kate Capshaw. I'm sorry. The entire movie, she was nothing but nails on a chalkboard every time she opened her mouth at all. Oh, no, you're cutting it off too short. She carries that out. Like, it is a nagging squeal and squawk. Indy! It's like it just goes on for a while. Now, Kate Capshaw was hysterical, and she was very charming in that movie at times. She was hysterical to look at. Just like her facial expressions. She's very good at, there we go. Fix that a little bit. She's very good at, her like comedy that she gets out, like with her presence. She's very good at that. But when it comes to it, Kate Capshaw is easily like my least favorite. And you know what, Kate, if you're ever watching the show, I'm sorry. I adore you and other things that you're in, but Indiana Jones was not it, darling.
You want to know something?
Huh?
I've got a little something that might help demonstrate the reasoning here. So if you'll bear with me for just a second.
Okay. Don't put her on. So I really make this.
on, Shorty. Tight.
And that's just like that's the first like 15 minutes. Yeah, that's quite literally the first 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah,
It,
it's
it didn't stop from there, but it's like that's the only reason why she is, I think, the weakest link to any Indiana Jones movie, because of all that squealing.
now.
Just it's
Let me put this into context real quick. That was a YouTube video entitled "Every Instance of Kate Capshaw Screaming in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom." I played roughly 35 seconds of it. There was still another entire 2 minutes plus to go. Mind you, this isn't her dialogue. This is just instances of her screaming
or squealing or squeaking, stuff like that.
There's close to 3 minutes of material for this supercut of just that.
It's so much. But either way, so like with that being said, everything else, like, yeah, she did a few things, but it's like she was more like the comedy relief, I think, for that movie that just kind of wasn't really funny. And I think they were trying to make her charming, but she didn't have that. But the movie itself, like there's a lot that went into the making of it. But now with Kate Capshaw, God damn it, sorry, I got used to sitting in a different chair for the last like 2 weeks while I was working on my office. But
I've been working on mine too. See,
but Kate Capshaw, Kate Capshaw said that with her character. Let me see if I find this quote here. She was very critical of her own character, saying that Willie was not much more than a dumb, screaming blonde. You know what, Kate? We both agree with you here. You're right. You got gypped. You could have had her actually be someone that was more of a badass, like every other Indiana Jones woman. They made you the weakest link of all of them. I'm not even like trying to be mean there. I think I'm very accurate with saying that. But my favorite was the Indian shaman. Did you know this? The Indian shaman did not speak a word of English. When he's speaking to Indiana Jones, he's mouthing back what Steven Spielberg's saying to him. So when he's not speaking, it's not for dramatic effect. I always thought that was, but it's not for dramatic effect. It's because he's waiting for his next line.
He has no idea what he's saying.
He has no clue what he's saying in that movie. No clue. He doesn't speak a word of English at all. He didn't. Well, didn't. Pretty sure he's passed away now, but still. But there was a whole lot. On top of that, Temple of Doom is banned in India. It's never even been shown on TV over there. So if you're in India watching our show or listening to our show right now, you are missing out on. I don't know if all Indiana Jones movies are banned in India as an effect of this one, but if you have never seen an Indiana Jones movie, you're actually missing out on a pretty good film series. Save for not the latest one, but the last one that came out in 2008. But there's a lot. My favorite callback is the nightclub in the opening of the movie, Club Obi-Wan. I always thought that was cool. What are you reading?
I was seeing if all of the movies were banned in India.
Oh, I got you. Okay. All right. But on top of that, you also have things like, with Steven Spielberg, he's acrophobic, which pretty much means he's afraid of heights. So there's a final scene in the movie, this big, big, big scene where Indiana Jones is fighting this the big cult leader in the movie. And they're on a bridge and he's holding on to the stone. And he starts saying the chant, and the stone's like, whatever, but this is after Indiana cuts the bridge and everything else, and they say it gets this bridge was quite literally hundreds of feet up off the ground.
Yeah.
That they're acting on. They're acting hundreds of feet off the ground. All of them. Steven Spielberg would not even step foot on this bridge to cross it to get to the other side to direct. He had to drive a mile and a half, I believe, around to another bridge just to get to the other side so he could get back to directing. Like, I can't say I blame him. I would never sell. I mean, that bridge did not look safe. I mean, it's, you know.
And
Plus, there's also
people thought only the kids were neglected in the 80s. Nope.
Nope. Lots of shit went down acting sets. And, Harrison Ford, he's gotten his ass kicked. He's talked about how he's cracked himself with a whip a few times. Like, he's not a trained whip handler. It's not like how Michelle Pfeiffer just immediately took to the whip like as Catwoman.
Yeah, it's weird. A little scary.
Ford, Harrison Ford actually, like, I mean, can you imagine having I think it was like a 20-foot long bullwhip? 20 foot long. Those things are usually not that long. But on top of that, I love the swinging. A lot of it was Harrison Ford doing his stunts. He was a younger guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, like he wanted Karen Allen initially to come back as Marion Ravenwood, but they felt that he and George Lucas agreed, which I think is a mistake. He and George Lucas agreed that it would be a mistake to have the same woman for every single Indiana Jones film. I guess they were looking at like a James Bond kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Where they were going to have like a different woman for each entry. But Marion Ravenwood, she's like the OG.
Yeah.
Like partner in crime for Indiana. And she's been so prominent that they brought her back for Crystal Skull. They brought her back for the latest movie, albeit very briefly. But yeah, like, I mean, this movie, it cracks me up. This movie is rated PG. And you and I were talking about this earlier.
Mm-hmm.
You have such disturbing scenes that you can see in this movie, and it's only a PG. Because, mind you, ladies and gentlemen, we discussed this on the show before about the rating system. The rating system did not change until the late 80s. PG-13 is a relatively new thing in the long-term aspects of the film industry. But it didn't come out until the 80s, so it's just over 30 years old, I believe. But before that, we had movies that were PG with like Gremlins. That's a terrifying movie to show a kid, but it's a family film, technically. Indiana Jones. In this one, you have a guy who is rips another dude's heart out. Kalima, Kalima, hum num shemai, hum num shemai. Like, he's doing this. The other guy's chanting as he's holding the guy's beating heart in his hand. They lower this guy into a lava pit. And as this guy starts burning, the heart starts burning, but it's still pumping. This is a PG movie. Another guy gets flattened by a rock crusher. Very graphically, might I add, for the time. But it's just, God. Have you had, like, the kiddos watch this movie yet, Josh? Have they seen any of these movies?
Yeah, of course.
Like, do they just point out like how dated these effects are? Even though I think they're still awesome effects, but you can tell like when there's a like a blue or green screen like in front of them as they're lowering them down, or like a projection screen in front of them.
No, they don't call that. They've been watching movies as old as me since forever. They get it.
Gotcha.
Do you?
I do.
Well, you know what I have to say about that?
What? Nothing, huh? Didn't think so. Yeah, tell me this is not graphic. For a PG movie, Josh, look at this. PG movie.
D, he's all right. This is stuff we watched without our parents, and we were rooting for it. And the guy's just like, huh? I don't have a heart. What?
These are things that, like, I remember my brother making me believe that he could actually pull my heart out. So he comes after me, he's like, Kalima, and I'm freaking out.
You gotta say the words.
I'm having a meltdown. Like, no, you don't say the words. If he's trying to rip your heart, you do not say Om Nam Shabbat. Like, you don't say that if he's trying to rip your heart out, because that just gives him more power. But I will say, for like, there are other aspects of trivia for this movie, like with Kate Capshaw. There's a scene where she's rescuing Indiana Jones and Short Round from this crushing ceiling with spikes on it, and she is in a cavern covered in thousands of insects. She's apparently terrified of insects, so she is working her way through this tunnel, and she's quite literally covered in all kinds of different, not venomous, but insects, nonetheless. And she is freaking out. So they had to actually give her a sedative to help her relax before she could go in there and do that. Like Steven Spielberg, he really went for like authenticity with this movie, with like reactions. But then she does this slapstick thing where she comes in and she turns around, she bumps the wall with her butt, and the ceiling starts coming down again. But it's like, honestly, I think it's my next to last in my least favorite of the Indiana Jones movies. I've got to say that. It's like, of all the movies, I think Crystal Skull falls on the very last as far as like my list, and this one's like number 4 for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll watch it, but I don't really get excited about watching Temple of Doom. But what does crack me up is, if you have you ever played the video game
Which one?
for Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom?
No, I haven't. I played Last
No?
Crusade, but not Temple of
Okay.
Doom.
Did I ever send you that picture of the title screen?
No.
No, I'm going to send this to you. I'm going to let you share this with the ladies and gentlemen on the watching our show. This honestly had me cracking up for all the worst reasons. There's instructions on the title screen on how you get points, how you get items, and all that stuff. And you want to talk about just the worst.
Oh, wait. I think you did send this to me at some point.
It's okay. Let's send it to you again here.
Yeah,
But here it
that
is.
way I don't have to dig through our messaging.
Yeah, I have it right here. But there's, ladies and gentlemen, there's a thing called verbiage and wording. You're going to see what I'm talking about with this video game title screen here. Now, it's an okay game. It's not a horrible game. It's frustrating.
There we go.
But let's read this all together, ladies and gentlemen. So, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Score 0. Wave 1. Lives 4. Touch prize to collect. Touch kid to see prize. Touch kid to see prize. What cracks me up is the angry video game nerd. Like James Rolfe. I watch this stuff. I think he's hysterical. He did an episode for Indiana Jones like a while back.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked about Temple of Doom, but he missed that one scene. He missed that one part. Touch kid to win prize or to see prize. Now, I know Indiana Jones is an archaeologist and he likes to discover things.
Mm-hmm.
But
mm-hmm.
made him look a little, as a kid say today, sus.
Way to keep up with the lingo, Brandon.
I know, right? No cap, yo. Oh, man, there's no way to say that as a 40-year-old man and not sound old as shit.
Yeah, you're old and white.
Yeah, I'm old and white. Thank you for pointing that out, Josh. I am very much white.
Don't you mean thank you, Captain Obvious?
Well, like, so coming off of Temple of Doom, though, we have the next one. One of my favorites, and it was talked about in The Big Bang Theory. You have Raiders of the Lost Ark. And for those of you that are not familiar with this one, Raiders of the Lost Ark is about Indiana Jones teaming up with an old love interest, Marion Ravenwood, to seek out the Ark of the Covenant. It's a race against time with Nazi soldiers and generals, because if the Nazis get this Ark, they believe that will give Hitler the ultimate power to conquer the world.
Yes.
And it's honestly, I think it's one of the best Indiana Jones entries. It starts off with like I don't know what it is about Indiana Jones and George Lucas and Steven Spielberg creating timeless characters or situations.
Uh-huh.
But it starts off in one of the most famous scenes in like cinematic history in the last 40 years. And it's of Indiana Jones swapping the idol out on that pedestal. And then that brief cocky look of relief. Yeah. And does a whole like just like switches it, walks away. But he has that like that. He's got that cocky like smile, and then things start rumbling, and a giant boulder starts barreling towards him. He just starts running. It's got a very young Alfred Molina. You'll know him better as Doctor Octopus from Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man No Way Home, as well as
many other roles because he is a brilliant actor.
many other roles. I'm just saying, but those are some of his more famous roles that he's been in.
Yeah.
But he's been in tons of things. Obviously, it's Alfred Molina. He's great, amazing in Identity. Like Not Without My Daughter, he was great in that movie. He's a great actor. But the thing is that with Alfred Molina, he plays Indiana Jones' assistant, and he's a throwaway character. It doesn't last very long. He kind of tries to screw over Indiana Jones. Amidst this rolling boulder, Indiana Jones just escapes it. He hurls his whip and crosses a little like what do you call it, like a pit.
Yeah.
But he gives it to Alfred Molina first, and he like lets him across, and he's like, "Throw me the whip." He's like, "Throw me the idol." Well, throw me the whip first. Throw me the idol. So he tosses him the idol, and Alfred Molina like pulls down the whip and says, "So long, Dr. Jones," and he runs off. And next thing you know, Indiana Jones gets past his pit and sees him with a spear through his head. Again, PG movie, ladies and gentlemen. Alfred Molina is standing there with a very graphic dummy of Alfred Molina, very lifelike too, might I add, for that time period.
Now, I feel like we should remind people that once again, this movie came out before Temple of Doom.
Yes,
and Temple of Doom is like one of those movies that was actually named in the reason why we needed PG-13 ratings.
Yep.
So when someone said, you know what, maybe Temple of Doom wasn't just a PG movie, but it certainly wasn't an R movie, we should probably figure out an in between.
Yeah, well, so you also had, mind you, like I think The Last Crusade was also PG.
Well, that wasn't nearly as graphic.
I beg to differ. That one guy rotting away right in front of their face, another guy gets crushed by a tank.
Yeah, but it's not like, Last Crusade was PG-13.
Oh, it was okay. So, all right. So then after, between Gremlins and Raiders of the Lost Ark, the MPAA is like, whoa, like you guys are getting away with so much stuff here. No, we need like an in between here because this is just not good. I guess parents are calling the studios complaining about things like Gremlins and Raiders of the Lost Ark. These are graphic movies. These 80s movies are very graphic. And if you even look at other movies like The Never-Ending Story is a PG movie. If you're a child of the 80s, you remember Atreyu like with his horse and the horse giving up and pretty much drowning in a mud swamp. Like these are things that we watched as a kid. This is why we're so messed up, guys. This is why our generation is very messed up. Like this is what we watched, and then when we had our fill of really, really, really graphic PG movies, we would go and we'd watch Ren and Stimpy, The Simpsons, and In Living Color. You're muted.
So, do you remember what the first PG-13 movie was?
I do not.
It was Red Dawn.
Red Dawn.
Yes.
And yeah. Well.
So thank you, Indy.
Raiders of the Lost Ark, you changed the world. But yeah, so. And like there's more trivia about. See, the great thing about like the Indiana Jones movies is that there's so much trivia behind them. There's so much about like why things were filmed the way they were. And one of my favorite, and it's such a fan, it's like another timeless scene. Marion Ravenwood is kidnapped by like some people, and Indiana Jones is trying to hunt her down. So he runs this one fair, like he's running through like this whole streets and everything else, trying to find her. And as he finally finds her, he is. I'm sorry, I lost my place here. What did I do? There it is. Okay, right there. Got it. Okay, so there's a scene where Indiana Jones was supposed to have a sword fight with a henchman,
I'm gonna ask you to stop right there.
Okay, thank you. Why? They're
This
gonna
is
show
why.
it. See, another famous scene in an Indiana Jones movie. So that right there, is it funny? Absolutely. It's
Yes.
hysterical. It's just Indiana Jones, like, you know what, I'm done. Like, I don't have time for this. And just shoots him. That was supposed to be a choreographed sword fight.
Yes, it was.
The day that was filmed, he was dealing with a stomach issue, and he actually was suffering from serious diarrhea. He had food poisoning or something like that. But so he
Like
was
the
dealing
flu.
with like some kind of it was really bad. But he pretty much he had the shit. Like he had the shits that day. There was no ifs, ands, or buts. He had severe. He's been open about it. He had severe
There was
diarrhea.
plenty of butts.
So that being the case, he was saying, like, I think it would just be funnier if Indiana Jones shoots him. So they gave him that take, and it just worked. It was hysterical. So then here we are, like, 30 years later, and 40 years later, rather, and that right there is cemented as another scene that has been picked apart in like different forms of pop culture and like spoofed and everything else, just because of how flawless that scene was pulled off. Like, you keep putting yourself on mute there, buddy.
It's a scene that you can see in the I think it's now defunct Indiana Jones live action show. If you remember that.
They still have the live action show out here in California, to my understanding.
Okay, because I don't think they have it down here in Florida anymore.
Yeah, no, I know they still have it in California. I know they have the ride out here, and I've done the ride. I pretend to be the driver and everything else, like whatever. But if I remember it, I believe last time I was at Disneyland, which whatever. I believe they were working on something with the show. It was like closed down for some kind of renovation or whatever it was. So one of these days I'll see it. But I've watched it online. I've watched it like on YouTube.
Oh, I've seen it live so many times. It is so awesome.
I've never seen it live.
And the fact that they have these huge set pieces, like they have, you saw it, the boulder chase, and the fight in the market, and then the airport with they had the plane.
Oh, when he was fighting the really big guy.
Yeah.
So it's like an amalgamation of all the Indiana Jones movies then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, it's like, so I mean, that being the case, like there was that scene. You have the iconic scene of Indiana Jones going into the tomb, and he lands, and he realizes that he's surrounded by snakes. His biggest fear, and he's in a pit of snakes. But really, the funniest thing is it's talked about in The Big Bang Theory with this movie about how Indiana Jones never was needed for this movie. He didn't have to hunt down the Ark. He didn't have to protect it. It would have ended the same way. Here we go. Did you have this at the ready?
So what'd you think?
It was good.
That's it? Good?
I enjoyed it. When you told me I was going to be losing my virginity, I didn't think you meant showing me Raiders of the Lost Ark for the first time.
My apologies. I chose my words poorly. I should have said you were about to have your world rocked on my couch. Anyway, thank you for watching it. It's one of my all-time favorites.
It was very entertaining, despite the glaring story problem.
Story problem? Amy. What a dewy-eyed mooncalf you are. Raiders of the Lost Ark is the love child of Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, two of the most gifted filmmakers of our generation. I've watched it 36 times, except for the snake scene and the face melting scene, which I can only watch when it's still light out. But I defy you to find a story problem. Here's my jaw. Drop it.
All right. Indiana Jones plays no role in the outcome of the story. If he weren't in the film, it would turn out exactly the same.
I see your confusion. You don't understand. Indiana Jones was the one in the hat with the whip.
No, I do. And if he weren't in the movie, the Nazis would have still found the Ark, taken it to the island, opened it up, and all died, just like they did. Let me close that for you.
You know how Indiana Jones came to be, right? You're on mute again. Did you ever hear about how Indiana Jones was made? How the idea came about?
Yes, but there are. I'm sorry. You know what? No, Brandon. How did that happen?
I was actually hoping you actually did not know, but because it's actually awesome. It's all right. George Lucas would go on vacation right before each of his movies premiered. He'd always go on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
So like when A New Hope came out, he went on vacation. So while he was on vacation after A New Hope, he's hanging out with Steven Spielberg on a beach, and they're building a sandcastle. Just two grown-ass men building a sandcastle on the beach, hanging out, just talking.
It was the 80s.
Steven Spielberg was talking about how
70s.
He always wanted to, probably 78, 79. But Steven Spielberg had mentioned how he always wanted to direct a James Bond movie. And George Lucas tells him, like, well, I actually have an idea. It's called Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's about this, and whatever. And sold Steven Spielberg on the idea. So they went back and they started developing the whole idea with Lawrence Kasdan?
Lawrence Welk?
No, Kasdan. I want to say Kasdan. Let me just verify this really quick. I want to be wrong here.
Well, you keep talking. I'll verify the information.
Okay, but either way, so they developed the script with this Lawrence guy,
Lawrence Kasdan.
Kasdan. Oh, go me! Awesome. So they developed the script of this guy, and that's how Indiana Jones came about. And this is the first Indiana Jones movie made. As we said before, chronologically speaking, it is the second in the series. But it's the first one that they made. So that being the case, that's why Marion Ravenwood is that's why she's in this one and she's not in Temple of Doom, because I guess they figured that was going to be beforehand. And it didn't really have a whole lot to do with Nazis, Temple of Doom. That really had nothing to do with
Nazis
at all.
That's another knock against it, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's like you think Indiana Jones, you think Nazis, you think like he's fighting Nazis.
let me be clear. I'm not saying that Temple of Doom is lesser because, oh darn, I don't get to see Nazis. I'm saying
you don't get to see Nazis getting their asses kicked.
Right. I don't get to see Indiana Jones punching Nazis. And Indiana Jones is always at his best when he's punching Nazis.
Oh yeah. But so either way, so like this movie comes out, and it's honestly, I gotta say that this is the movie that absolutely gave me a huge crush on Karen Allen when I was a kid. Karen Allen in this movie playing Marion Ravenwood. Yeah, here's the thing. Like, there's a lot of movies that come out these days, and if you have a strong female character in a movie these days, everyone's so quick to say woke, right? It's so woke. It's a woke movie. There's a strong female character. It's go woke, go broke, whatever, right? Marion Ravenwood was a badass character. Right there next to Sigourney Weaver and all them. She stood her ground. She was not afraid of people. Like, yeah, Indiana Jones did save her in that opening, like, when you first meet her, but like there's this, the first time you meet her, she's drinking some dude like 3 times her size under the table. Later on in the series with Crystal Skull, she's coming along, she's kicking some ass in that movie. But at the same time, it's just like Karen Allen was like, she was like just like a babe to me when I was younger. Like, I was like, oh my god, she's gorgeous. I had a huge crush on her. And she's an old woman now, but look how pretty she was. Like, well, she's still pretty for her age, but like, look at that, like, babe, flat out babe status right there.
You're not wrong.
Not one bit. So. And like, here's the thing, like, this is the first Indiana Jones movie. They had a modest budget. I want to say it was a $20 million budget. It brought back almost $400 million in the box office, which greenlit Temple of Doom.
Mm-hmm.
You know, $20 to $389, almost $390 million, like, box office draw. I mean, that's damn good. So naturally, the studio's thinking, like, how can we make another Indiana Jones movie? What can we do? And then they penned Temple of Doom. But the thing is with this, as we were talking about graphic nature of movies, this movie, the very first one, you have the guy getting stabbed in the head with a spear in the opening scene, right?
Yeah.
You have like a monkey that eats a poisoned date and dies. You have a lot of stuff that happens in here, but then you have the famous scene. Oh, let's also not forget the guy, like the one guy that goes to pick up the pennant in the flames, and he pretty much burns it into his hand. And that's another iconic moment where he does that to show who he is, and he had like the pennant burned into his hand. But we have one of the most graphic moments in cinematic history. One that gave me nightmares as a child. It's when they open up the Ark of the Covenant. This thing turned into a damn horror movie. Like, this was, you have guys, it's fascinating how they did this. I assume you're going to show a clip of this. But is that what you're doing?
You think I would do that?
Yeah, I assume that's what you're doing. So after you show it, I'll talk about how it was done. But this scene when we were kids, man, tell me this did not scare the shit out of you. Like, oh, what's inside
See?
the Ark?
Look, lots of Nazis.
Yeah. Oh, check this out. Oh, it's sand. And this is where they messed up.
Oh, in case you couldn't tell, there's going to be a lot of spoilers for all the Indiana Jones stuff.
Yes, there is. Now, I don't know how much we can really spoil for the newest movie. I don't think we can go a whole lot of stuff in there. Because it's still brand new to theaters. There's not a whole lot on YouTube yet. But anything else? I think it's fair game. But seriously, this was nightmare fuel to me when I was a kid. Absolute nightmare fuel.
Yeah, it's scary stuff, and then people try to tell me, but Steven Spielberg didn't direct Poltergeist. Yeah, sure he didn't.
Marion, don't look at it. Shut your eyes, Marion. Don't look at it, no matter what happens.
And the lighting. Just look at the lighting.
No, yeah, it's brilliant. There it is. God. PG movie, ladies and gentlemen.
That was wonderful.
So the way they did that special effect is so fascinating because, you know, it's all just really what was it like? They had to build different layers to it, I believe, something like that. But one layer, I believe, they actually had like some kind of like there's like different forms of wax or something like that. I have to look into it. Like I have to see how it was made, but it was just like it's so fascinating how they made that happen. And they just sped up the melting process. That's all they did.
Here's the one of the things that I absolutely love about that moment, the little detail that it's literally a blink and you miss it moment when the face is melting and you notice the hat like drops down a little bit
Oh yeah, yeah,
because
yeah. The skin's all gone. And everything
It's all
else,
gone.
it's all
So-
gone. Yeah.
you just notice that it just sinks down a little bit.
Oh yeah, no, it's like I've always thought that was fascinating. Like it's just, but that whole movie, like as Sheldon said, Indiana Jones. I'm sorry, as the Big Bang Theory said, Indiana Jones. He was not needed for that film. It would have ended the exact same way. That's how that movie ends, without Indiana Jones messing with anything that they were doing. Indiana Jones did nothing to mess with that situation to make it blow up on them.
Would you say arguably that people would have been almost better off if he had not been involved himself in the situation?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, yeah. Because after that, the only thing we've ever seen of the Ark of the Covenant was like a cameo in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. But so that movie had Marion Ravenwood,
Yeah,
absolute babe.
Mhm. That's marriage material, right? there.
Absolutely. Oh, Karen Allen. Oh, hell yeah, dude. Old school Karen Allen back in the 80s. Shit, bring it. Like, woman had some spunk. But that was like that's the second one canonically. So after that movie, the next in line on the chronological level would be The Last Crusade. My personal favorite Indiana Jones movie of all time,
Mine as well.
to this day, is The Last Crusade. And when I was younger, it actually was Raiders of the Lost Ark. As I got older and I started understanding like, the humor in The Last Crusade more, I was like, this is genius. This is brilliant. It's by far the funniest Indiana Jones movie, and is largely because of Sean Connery and Harrison Ford's chemistry they have together
Mm-hmm.
as a father and son. You actually watch them acting next to each other, and you can believe that Sean Connery that this character raised Indiana Jones, because they're so much alike. So it's just like, and this movie, it is all about the search for the Holy Grail. That's the whole basis of this movie. It starts off, we see a young River Phoenix. I can't really say a young River Phoenix because he did pass away very young. But we see River Phoenix acting as Indiana Jones back when I think he was like a Ranger Scout or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
We see Indiana Jones pick up a whip for the first time, and that's when he was trying to fend off a lion. And they explain how Harrison Ford, who has that real scar on his chin, how Indiana got that scar. And it's from him cracking a whip for the first time and cracking himself in the face. And so you see him hunting down this cross, this relic, and he brings it home to his father, played by Sean Connery. And as he gets home, this person who he's barely escapes from.
Come on, kid.
Here we go.
There's no way out of this.
Figured in for a penny at this point.
There we go.
Toss up the web. You got heart, kid, but that belongs to me.
Belongs to Coronado.
Coronado's dead, and so are all of his grandchildren.
This should be in a museum.
Now give it back.
His favorite line.
Don't let him get away.
Magic?
Yeah, that's enough of that.
Yeah. And people say like the Indiana Jones movies are campy, but they always have been campy. Like what the scene that Josh has cut off at, there's a scene where he gets in a magic box, and as the guys are about to get in, the box just falls flat, and they look out, and he's running down the train tracks. Like it's just a kid that has no idea how this thing works. But either way, it's like it's a very interesting. Like it's good to see River Phoenix doing his thing. That's surely, I believe, that was shortly before he passed away. But then it fast forwards to Indiana Jones running into, I want to say it was the same guy, not the archaeologist, but the same bad guy that claimed the cross that you saw there.
Mm-hmm.
And this time he's on a ship and everything else. He just nearly escapes the ship. The ship goes down. I think everyone on the ship dies. So he goes. This is the first time we really see him teaching his classes, I believe. But he ends up again confronted from by his friend. Was it Marcus? I think it was Marcus that confronts him about the Holy Grail. Tells him that his father went missing and everything else, but he mailed him this diary, and the diary has these clues to the Holy Grail. So he's got to go through like all these steps across the world to find the Holy Grail of Jesus Christ. And the movie's just hysterical. It's great because he runs into his father. He finds out that his love interest Billy in this movie. No, it's not Billy. What's her name? Shit. What was her name, Josh?
Her name was Josh.
Uh-huh.
Hey, I'm trying to do the producing here. Give me a
second here. Okay, so Sean Connery, Marcus Brody. That's right, Dr. Elsa Schneider. She played Dr. Schneider.
Yeah.
So
how do you know she speaks German? She talks in her sleep.
There was so much back and forth between them in that movie. And the fact that he improvised that line. Like, he improvised the hell out of that line in that movie. Did you know that? The whole she talks in her sleep, that was not scripted.
I had no idea.
Like, Sean Connery was actually he was a really funny guy. Like, he was hysterical. So there's a whole lot that goes on there. So yeah, when he mentions that she talks in her sleep, that was something that like was not expected from the crew. So when he said that, the entire cast and crew started cracking the hell up. It was unexpected.
Because it's hilarious.
Oh, absolutely. And it's got one of my favorite scenes in it. You and I have discussed this on the phone, but it's one of my favorite scenes, and it's followed by my second favorite scene in Indiana Jones movie. It is where they escape a blimp. Kevin Smith. This is a reference that you've seen in movies. I promise you, ladies and gentlemen. And it was used in Dogma, actually.
Hold on. I'm gonna do it.
Okay.
Hold on.
Are you doing the blimp thing that I'm talking about?
Yeah. Gotta make sure everything's all
okay. Well, while he's getting this ready, it's like one of my favorite scenes because it's hysterical. It was used in Dogma where Silent Bob throws one of the I think Loki off the train, and then he throws Bartleby off the train. You're gonna have to fast forward, dude. This is so far ahead of it.
Made it. When we're airborne with Germany behind.
Right here. Yep, right here.
No ticket.
Everyone pulls their tickets. It's so brilliant, but
those tickets.
But so they use that in Dogma with Loki and Bartleby, where he ends up throwing them both off a train, Silent Bob, and some guy's like staring at him. He's like, looks out the door, looks at him, is like, no tickets. And he's like, walks past the dude. So you can see where a lot of Indiana Jones movies have actually affected future, movies and pop culture. Now, Kevin Smith is arguably a much bigger nerd than you and I could ever aspire to be. He's a huge geek. Well, I adore Kevin Smith. Don't get me wrong. He's a huge nerd, though. Absolutely is.
Luckiest nerd alive.
Yeah, and Kevin, if you watch these shows, again, dude, we love and adore you, but you're a pretty fucking big nerd there. So there's my one per episode. Now, the next scene that I think is hysterical, that I can never stop laughing at, no matter how many times I see it, is the scene where they escape the blimp. And these scenes are so close together, where they escape the blimp and they're on the plane, and you have Sean Connery in the gunner's seat in the back. And Indiana Jones like, Dad, 11 o'clock. What happens at 11? Like, no, 11, 10, 9. No, 11 o'clock. So he starts following the guy with a gun, and he shoots the tail of the plane, decimates it. Once he realizes what he's doing, he's like looking at the tail, and he like sits back and like looks at Indiana, and Indiana's like, Dad, are we hit? Yeah, Sean Connery's like, more or less. Son, I'm sorry. They got us.
What happens at 11 o'clock? 12, 11, 10, 11 o'clock, fire!
Hey. It's so good.
It's his reaction.
More or less. Son, I'm sorry. They got us.
And then you have the scene when they're in the car and they're hauling ass from the tunnel and they're still being chased. You know, like Sean Connery, he takes down one plane by using his umbrella to scare pigeons and whatnot, and seagulls. Takes down a plane, they fly up in the propellers, and this isn't exactly the era of animal rights, ladies and gentlemen, so don't get too upset if you haven't seen this. But they get in the car and they're hauling ass away from the scene. They're coming into a tunnel. They go around a quick turn. They go into a tunnel in the mountain, and this Nazi fighter plane follows them in by accident and just clips the wings right off the plane. And so Sean Connery's looking behind him. He's like, son, step on it. And Indiana Jones is like hauling ass, like, foot pedal to the metal kind of deal. And as he's doing this, the jet, like the fighter plane, is like, it's skidding so fast it goes right past them, to where they're making eye contact with each other as the fighter pilot's just like sliding. And then, like any 80s movie, he blows up. Because that's what happened if you even shot if you shot the trunk of a car in the 80s, the car would blow up. That's how it worked. I don't know. It's 80s action movie physics. But it's just such a hysterical moment. And there's tons of them. There's a lot of them. But I love the scene on the plane, on the blimp, Josh. My favorite, one of my other favorite scenes is when Indiana Jones is talking about how this is the first drink that they shared since he was a kid. And Sean Connery is like, well, yeah, what was the last one? It's like, last one was a milkshake. What were we talking about? Nothing. We didn't talk then either. Like, oh, okay. And he's like, but you're just like, you're nothing like, if you're like anything like the other kids' dads, you would have noticed that, whatever. He's like, I was a great father. Like, oh, really? It's like, yeah, I taught you self-reliance. I respected your privacy. I didn't tell you to do your homework and go to bed. Like, I raised you to take care of yourself, basically. It's like, well, we never talk about anything. It's like, well, what do you want to talk about? Well, nothing, I guess. Then what are you complaining for? It's just like they're back and forth the entire movie. It's just the best part of that movie is those two.
I'm about to play something, but
okay.
Let me warn everybody. No, the show's not ending right now, but it's sort of a part of the legacy, if you will, of especially this movie. So we love this movie so much.
Yep, and my dog's name is Indiana Jones because of a line in this movie. So
So this is what we use in honor of this film.
We named the dog Indiana.
Because throughout the movie, it's not like his dad's going, Indiana. He's like,
Junior. He calls him Henry. It's just like, don't call me Henry. It's Indiana. Indiana. We named the dog Indiana. yeah. It was like, I think, what's his face? Is like, you're named after the dog. Like, it's just so stupid, but it's hysterical.
Yeah, it was great writing back then. Great writing.
Oh yeah, no, it's absolutely 100%, dude. But then like you have other characters. Like I said, you have Dr. Schneider. You have Marcus Brody, who is when he and Sean Connery run into each other in the tank, and they're doing their little hello, and they're doing like the little dance and everything else, and like the smiling and whatever. It's like you can tell they were friends for a long time. Sala is one of my favorite Indiana Jones characters. It's just such a well done movie. But then once you get through everything, they're chasing after the Holy Grail. They escape apprehension from everyone. There's a scene where Indiana Jones goes back to Nazi Germany to retrieve the diary, his father's diary, from the woman that screwed him over. Like, kind of like the would-be love interest of the movie.
Except she was a Nazi. She
was a Nazi. She did not agree with book burning at all. She believed in studying books. She was one of the I guess they try to make her sympathetic because they even showed her like crying when they were burning books.
Like Jay would say, she's not all the way evil, but she's most of the way evil.
Oh yeah. So that being the case, like he gets the book, he and his father escape once again, and as they're getting out of there, they get shoved to like this line where Adolf Hitler's walking through the crowd, and he gets pushed right in, like he gets pushed right against Adolf Hitler. He spins around, Hitler spins around. They're staring at each other, and Indiana's holding his father's diary, the thing that the Germans are after, and Hitler grabs the diary, reaches behind him like for a pen, grabs a pen. Looks down, flips to a page, just signs his name, and hands it back to Harrison Ford. So they try to leave and everything else. They get captured once again, and they're like, "Where's the diary?" And it's like, "I don't have the diary." It's like, "I'm talking to your son, Indiana. Where's the diary?" It's like, "You think my son's stupid enough to travel halfway around the world and bring the diary back here?" And Indiana Jones is like, reaches in his satchel. And Sean Connery's like, "Oh, you didn't."
You know that dad sound of.
It's the I'm not mad. I'm just really disappointed. But so either way, they end up. Sean Connery and Marcus end up being taken by the Nazis in this tank.
Mm-hmm.
So it leaves Sala and Indiana like going over to try to free them. It's this big fight on the tank. While I'm talking about fights, I realized I did not mention the airplane fight in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Did I? Like when she's
not in detail, but it was mentioned in passing.
Okay, well, either way, another PG movie in Raiders of the Lost Ark where he knocks a guy into a propeller's end, like blood sprays everywhere. Yay, kids movie. But so in The Last Crusade, they're fighting on the tank, and this is even now watching it as an adult. You know how this goes. You know how the movie ends, but it's still like a white knuckle moment.
Mm-hmm.
Where Indiana Jones like on the treads of these tracks. And the only thing stopping him is that he's got his whip, like someone's holding, like he's got his whip wrapped around something. He's holding on for dear life, and he's just got the bumps like going along him as he's like getting dragged. But he ends up freeing his father, freeing Marcus. He's fighting this guy on the tank, and just as he's coming up to the the edge of a cliff, he knocks the shit out of this guy, and it's a little wonky. It's goofy looking. It's goofy looking back now when this tank goes off the cliff, but it's so graphic because when they threw this tank miniature off the cliff, they still had the Nazi attached to the tank. So you see a buddy fumbling with the tank too as it blows up. But they have everyone looking over a cliff, mourning Indiana Jones is lost, and he comes up and he walks over and just pops up between everybody, like looks over the cliff too. He just like starts nodding, like such a great scene. I love it. Which then eventually leads to them going to the temple where the Holy Grail is hidden. Are you bringing the tank scene now? Or should I keep going? Okay. Should I keep going before you bring that up, or? Okay. Here it is. Wonky. And there's that doll. Look at that doll. Oh, they must have like really edited this one down.
Lost it. I never told him anything. I just wasn't ready, Marcus.
Here it is.
I thought I'd lost it, boy. I had to, son.
This is such a touching moment too, because like this is the first time that they've ever had like any kind of real affection between the two characters his entire life.
Well done.
And then we have like the greatest, like another great scene. Like that's the wonderful thing about Indiana Jones movies, the OG ones, even Temple of Doom. They all lead one great scene leads into another great scene.
Mm-hmm.
Just when you think like you can't make another great scene in this movie, there's another one that comes up. Because the next one is they end up going to the temple. The Nazis already beat them to this temple. They have the diary, they have the map, they're already there. So they walk in there, and there's this one scene like with Marcus looking around the corner, and he just turns around, and he's got like that gun like pressed right to his face. And I love it because when the guy like just like moves a gun like that to him, Josh, remember that? He does this. Marcus like just like follows. He's like tilts his head. The guy like moves the gun again. He's like tilts his head again, moves the gun, so he starts walking. But there's like 3 tests in this temple before you can get to Holy Grail. There is the breath of God. There is testing your faith, and there is like the spelling of Jesus's name, but from Old Latin where it starts with an I. So he's sending people in here, but people keep getting their heads chopped off, and like there's another guy goes and gets his head chopped off, gets his sword cut in half. And Indiana Jones, he gets to this stuff barely with the blades the first time. Then he starts spelling Jehovah, but he forgets that in ancient Latin, Jesus' name starts with an I, so he gets to that puzzle.
Remember, his dad was critically injured.
Oh, that's right. Yes, he was shot as a way to motivate Indiana to go find the Grail.
And that's where we got the great, trying to figure out the way, past the puzzle, and you got this these cuts between,
yes,
his dad and him, and his dad's like remembering the passage from the book, and Indy's like, the penitent man, the penitent man. It's like the penitent man kneels before God. It's like kneel. It's like he ducks just in time before his head can get taken off.
Yeah.
And then the leap of faith. It's like
that was a really cool scene. It's still a really cool scene even now.
Yeah, because it's such a simple effect that, I mean, and we could do that effect. It's so easy to do, but it's the impact of it.
Yeah, it's a practical
incredible.
effect. Oh yeah, it's a practical effect. And for those of you that do not know what the leap of faith is, that test is as Indiana Jones comes out of that little cavern to go. He comes into like this giant open space with like a empty just no bottom to this cave at all. There's no bottom down there. Across the way is another door.
Mm-hmm.
So he's looking at this and he just the leap of faith. He closes his eyes, puts his left foot in front of him, and just steps down and hits hard ground. And as he looks down, he realizes that this is a very, very small bridge with no handles, no nothing, no markings.
But
as the camera, he cheated once he got across it. But the thing is, as the camera pans to the side, you see that this bridge was painted to look exactly like the wall below the door across the way. It is such a simple, practical effect that was done so brilliantly. And as he gets across, he grabs some sand and he throws it across the bridge, which is ultimately what led to the lead Nazi's downfall when I guess he and the woman figured out how to get through the other puzzles.
Well, I think once he got through, they were deactivated, I guess, or they just followed him. That's really not important. The fact is they made their way to the chamber.
Yeah. So they get to the chamber. There's an ancient knight that's been there for 700 years guarding the grill.
Mm-hmm.
And this leads me into another PG movie moment. PG-13. PG-13. Still horrifying as a kid. But so the doctor's looking around. There's a whole bunch of beautiful grails. And he's like, there's so many. I don't know which one I should choose. And Dr. Schneider's like, well, let me choose for you. And she grabs one, hands it to him. He's like, oh, of course. It's this big, giant, shiny goblet made of gold, gems on everything else. He's like, that is a cup of the King of Kings. And I tells him, be careful. The wrong grail takes life. The right grail gives life. Choose wisely. He sips this thing, and this is what happens.
Eternal life.
Tell me this is not horrifying for a kid to watch.
He's just drinking water. Nothing bad can happen, right? It's also a great edition of, know your meme history.
Oh, yeah.
What is happening to me?
You have chosen poorly. Yep. And then you have
Paulie.
And then you have Indiana, who finds the Grail because it is the most worn down cup in the room. It's
he
ugly.
looked for the cup that belonged to a carpenter.
Yep, carved out of wood and everything else. There's nothing fancy about it. He grabs this thing and he just picks it up. He tries it and that's it. Then he goes to Sean Connery. He gives him a sippy poo of it and he starts pouring it on his wounds. The wounds just like heals. It washes right off. Like it saves his life. And we got what we thought was the end of the Indiana Jones franchise because it was meant to be the end of the Indiana Jones franchise. A beautiful scene of Marcus, Sala, Henry Jones Sr., and Indiana Jones, all riding off into the sunset together to the theme of Indiana Jones. It was a great ending. It was 1989. It wrapped everything up. Everyone was still obsessed with Indiana Jones. All the kids, Josh, tell me that you did not love Indiana Jones as a kid, like the exploration,
Loved Indiana
everything
Jones
else.
as a kid.
It was
Absolutely.
for boys, when we were boys, like kids our age, we were all obsessed with Indiana Jones and going out, finding adventures and everything else. Kids, we didn't have the internet back then. We didn't have we were not allowed home.
Yeah.
We were told to get out and go play. Come home when the streetlights come on. So we had to get we had to get creative. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times we'd play Indiana Jones, and if you had a sibling, that bitch was pretty much going to be your assistant, and he was going to die somehow in the fiery pit.
You're the Nazis.
But so either way, fast forward to 2008. We have to talk about it. It's part of everything because it leads into the newest film.
Okay.
In 2008, we received a newer entry in the Indiana Jones chronology called Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Now, there are moments I think the opening of the movie started off pretty good. The opening when they're in the warehouse and everything else, Indiana Jones has never been in this warehouse. He knows nothing about it. But instead of fighting Nazis, he's fighting the Soviets. They are hunting for a crystal skull that is highly magnetic, but it's, there's no explanation for it. It's one of numerous skulls on the planet that are crystal. It's Indiana Jones. He makes a notice about how it's carved against the grain, which would cause any of this crystal to shatter any other way. There's no way to do that to crystal. Now, it starts off...
I need to interrupt you real quick, Brandon.
Okay.
Because with as many places as the show is being shared right now, I check in with the comments every once in a while. Jen, whom you might know, is one of the hosts of 1021, the internet's favorite movie-centric list-making podcast, has a comment. And okay. Jen says, "Why is Indiana Jones sad?" Because his career is in ruins.
It's so bad. My God. Jesus. No more jokes.
That, Jen?
No, but it's so the movie starts off with him being betrayed by his friend Mac, who he was conducting previous missions with. They were on a few missions, and Mac double-crossed him. So he helps him find this crystal skull, and then he pretty much narrowly escapes with some important documents. They chase him to a nuclear test site, and as they're at this test site, all the Soviets they run, and Indiana Jones realizes that he screwed up. He looks over. There's this giant dropper that has a bomb attached to it. He's got to find a safe space, so he finds an old lead-lined fridge that any other instance would cook a person. Probably one of the moments that took me out of this movie altogether the first time I saw it. I had to see this movie 3 times to really sit through it. And he survives a nuclear blast by doing this. This fridge gets launched hard. It would have broken every single bone in anyone else's body. It would have fried him and cooked him alive inside of it. But he just comes out, just scrapes some bruises, maybe.
For a scene that literally gave us new terminology, that gave us new phrases for the vernacular. Did you think that we weren't going to look at it?
Wait a minute.
Come on, gang!
Now, mind you, this is like stuff that happened, right?
Yeah.
No, that can't be good.
And for more on this particular story, don't forget to see Oppenheimer in theaters soon.
Oh, that can't be good at all.
Father, I'm not
And for all of you Call of Duty players, you might think some of this looks familiar as well.
Sure, great. Don't wait for me.
Minus 15 seconds. Minus 10 seconds. 9, 8.
This took me out of this movie so much when I saw this the first time.
You don't understand. They just don't make fridges like they used to.
Okay.
0.